Okay, there we are. There was
Yes.
some spinning going on with the go live. So,
System processing your request.
yes, exactly. Welcome. Happy Thursday. Welcome to Real Talk. We are maybe breaking all the rules. We're not sure because we don't know if you guys were expecting a countdown or not. But here we are. Welcome. We'll give folks kind of a few minutes to pop in and say hello to us. Hopefully the comments are working tonight.
Yeah, I hope so. I've got it up on my cellular device just to see if we got some people rolling in. Um,
That
and
is a good idea.
all the technological devices all of the time. Uh,
As I'm looking at us here on the screen, I think we and maybe Myron are the only ones who have this struggle going
oh my
on.
god, yes,
You
that's
know,
like my whole life.
trying to figure out where the glare is going on so that people can see our eyes and all of that.
For sure. And like I moved some lamps around so I didn't look so washed out because normally I'm just like part of the wall behind me because I am that pasty. So it's like, well, I need to fix this lamp situation. So I did that, but now you've got this reflection-y type stuff. But
Yes.
you win some, you lose some, I guess.
Yes. So I have this now. Good idea. I pulled this up on my cell phone. Folks, as you're coming in, this is Real Talk. We're just kind of giving folks a few minutes to come in and join the stream. If you are here already, please say hello. Let us know that you're here and share the stream. Tag a couple of friends. We are talking about family tonight. So this is going to be really good. We are excited to be here this evening. And I am ready for this conversation.
Mm-hmm. Me too. Like when you posed this question to us, like saying, "Hey, would one of y'all be willing to talk about this?" I was like, "That conversation topic sounds amazing." Yes, so I'm really excited about it.
So speaking of us, we will go ahead and introduce ourselves. If you are new here to the Faith Community or you're just popping in for Real Talk, my name is Ariana Valenzuela. You can see there on the screen. And I am the virtual experience person. I don't remember what fancy
I think
title Christian gave me.
coordinator, maybe.
Coordinator, there it is. That's me. Hello.
Awesome, and you also forgot Faith and Film super fan, super
Yes.
member.
I love Faith and Film, y'all. If you are not a part of our Faith and Film connection group here at TFC, you need to get on that. And if you don't know how to do that, let me know and I'll send you an invite. Faith and Film super fan. I like it.
Yes, we should get you like the little title or something. Well, my name is Kali Cawthon-Freels. I didn't put my last name on there because it's 8 million miles long. I'm the associate minister here at the Faith Community and just really excited to have good conversations with good folks about something that I think is like, I think when we say we're going to talk about family, that's such a subtle thing. Like it kind of flies under the radar. Like, oh, on the surface, it looks real innocent and like, oh, touchy feely family, this is gonna be fine. And then like we all have like some kind of family baggage, and then it's just like, oh no, now we're in the awkward place.
Yes, we are. And I think our task this evening is to just keep ourselves within the time frame. We're probably gonna drive our pastor Christian Smith here, amazing leader of the Faith Community, a little bit nuts because I gotta kind of call him out, man. If you've ever done a real talk with Christian, like he's got to have the thing, the whole thing, and me and Callie are just kind of like, yeah, right here, talking points. Let's do this. Let's go.
Right. I mean, like he kind of set the precedent, right? Like we're allowed to break the rules, right?
We're allowed to break the rules. Exactly. So that's exactly what we're going to do today. Hey, Mama Tony.
Mama Tony.
Welcome. we love Mama Tony. She is a part of our family for sure.
Mhm.
So we're gonna kind of get started tonight with a definition of family and what we think when we think of family. So, Kelly, you go ahead and go first.
Yeah, sure. So I think most of the time, at least in American culture, broadly speaking, particularly, well, at least my background speaking as a white person, we kind of have this assumed notion of like the nuclear family, where you've got the husband, you've got the wife, you've got the, what is it, like 2.5 kids and a dog, with the white picket fence and like all of that shebang, right? And so we were talking about this a little bit earlier, and I even looked it up real quick. The idea of the nuclear family is, at least in the context of how old society is, isn't super old. It goes back to about like the 13th century ish. But when you think about our ancestors in the faith, like the ancient Israelites and whatnot, like thousands upon thousands of years of family systems that were more just um, communal in making sure that you've got all the aunties present, you've got multiple generations of people in the home, and so I think we've got people in our church that have kind of different definitions for themselves of what family is. Like some people in our church, I think, might ascribe more to like the nuclear family, and I'm not going to call it the traditional nuclear family since it's not that old, comparatively. And then you've got people who are kind of more along that. I don't want to use the word biblical because we know that like labeling biblical anything here is kind of weird, but at least that more ancient framework of like having all of the extended family together, not just the immediate family. Um, so for me growing up, my family was the nuclear family. I had mom, dad, um, older sister, and then I'm a twin. So then does that make the 2.5 thing count?
Wait a minute. How did I not know that?
Yeah, well, I mean, for most people, I think I give off like only child vibes, but no, I've got an older sister and a twin brother. So
I'm I'm kind of shook right now because I'm really I really you do give off only child vibes, and I am a mother of twins.
really, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so how did we never, wow, okay. Listen, y'all, you learn something new on Real Talk every time.
I
I
will. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'm good.
I will. Quick sidebar. The two most ridiculous twin comments my brother and I have ever gotten. Okay, and you'll appreciate this as a mother of twins. Are y'all identical? No. Considering he's about a foot taller than I am with red hair, and also a guy, and I am not. So negatory. And then, but the coup de grace. How long have you been twins?
Okay, I love that one. And I love messing with people too. When they'll say something like, and it's a fair question. Nothing against the people who ask it because it's a good question. But I love messing with people. So when they'll say something like, "Oh, are they twins?" No, they're sisters.
Oh, I
And
love that.
yeah. So okay, all right. We're going all the way left already.
Yeah, but anyway, so but yeah, so nuclear family. We had mom, dad, brother, sister, dogs throughout childhood, and then my parents got divorced my freshman year of high school, and my dad was like 100% out of the picture, like no contact whatsoever. So then it was just me, my brother, my sister, and my mom, and so we tried to make stuff work. The way that my family is, we're not super close with any of our extended family. Like we talk with our cousins every now and then. Part of it, I think, was like a generational thing. Like my siblings and I are the youngest in our generation of cousins. So like we grew up with all of our cousins' kids, and like having sleepovers with them and that kind of stuff. Um, but yeah, so that's kind of like my context of like the family I grew up in, my family of origin. as it were. So how about you?
So yeah, so for me, I have that same kind of view, when people say family, I kind of think of, we actually heard it said on TV the other night, average family of four,
Yep.
and so that's kind of been, just like you said, that's the standard of the nuclear family, and this is what a family looks like. That's the same for me. However, I have never, and still am not, I didn't grow up in a family that looked like that. I don't have a family that looks like that. We can kind of pass, I guess, if that's such a if there's passing in terms of family. So I grew up, my mom was I grew up, it was mostly me and my mom. My mom was a single mom. There was a period of time in that window where she was married, and they weren't married for very long, and my when they got divorced, my dad was still, I mean, like, he was still over at the house. He would still come tuck me in. He would still, and then as he got remarried, and a couple of times, it was that kind of stuff kind of obviously died off, and so I primarily was me and my mom for the most part. And then my brother came along. Me and my brother are 15 years apart.
Oh, wow.
One of my brothers, I should say. I have four four brothers total, and my brother, like, from my mom, is him and I are 15 years apart. So that was interesting.
Yeah, sure.
And then at one point, so then it was me, my mom, and my brother, and then for a period of time it was me, my mom, my brother, and my son. And then I grew up in even my mom's family. My grandpa was married like three times, so there's like
Mm.
three groups of kids, and there's all the half and step and adoption, and all of that going on, and so that's kind of my context, is I've had, you know I've been in blended families, step families, all of that. And with my when you talk about extended family and stuff like that, my family's always been big. I don't
Mhm.
know what small family looks like. Even now, when we talk about a small family gathering, um, we can easily, that's like 15 to 25 people.
Wow. Like,
Yeah, and that's just, our family, because my husband, I guess, grew up in the traditional or nuclear, however we want to word that, family, because it was himself. He has a older brother, a younger sister, and then mom and dad. So, and they did have a dog, actually. So, um, we had a dog briefly. It did not last very long with just me and my mom. Yeah, it didn't work out. But and my kids have begged me for a dog ever since they were little, and it's just not happening. So yeah, so that's kind of where my context came from. So I guess growing up in the family that you grew up in, what kind of impact did that have in terms of, your interactions with others, and in, the creation of your own family?
yeah. So I think like when you were saying a small family gathering is 15 people, like that would have been so crazy to me as a kid, because I can think of two times where we did Thanksgiving where it wasn't just my immediate family. Like, it was literally just the five of us, and then when my dad left, it was just the four of us. So just like the thought of like a small family gathering being so large, when like that would have been a large family gathering for us. Um, like, that is just so interesting to me. And also, like, the more that I hear people talk about doing the holidays with their extended family and whatnot, I'm just like, man, we really missed out as kids, because that would have been so much fun. At least the one that I remember was so much fun. But anywho, that's a whole nother tangent. So how it affected me in building the family that I have. Well, I think it kind of set expectations of what I thought a family is supposed to look like. And then just as I got older and started engaging in more relationships, and realizing that my family system wasn't necessarily the healthiest in the world. I mean, our relationships are fine now, but for a while things were really rough, really, really rough. And so I kind of had to do this self discovery of like, well, what are healthy boundaries? What are healthy relationships? How do I create a system of healthy relationships, especially when at the time my family was so reticent to the idea of like creating such healthy boundaries. So I kind of really had to go outside of my biological family to create what we call in the LGBT community a chosen family to get that kind of network and support. And we sidebarred about this a little bit earlier. In the LGBTQ plus community, it's really, really common for people to like make these friend groups that become their support networks, and they're the ones that spend the holidays together, right? And like do all that kind of stuff because they just don't get the support that they would ordinarily get from their biological family. So it was interesting. Before I realized I was gay, I was already participating in that part of queer culture, and didn't even know it. So like on that part of things, like it really affected like my expectations, and then I had to like dismantle all of those expectations in order to create something that worked for me and for the people that I loved. Now, as a married woman, I mean, the expectations that the nuclear family created is like completely shattered. Well, because first of all, there's not a man involved. Um, like, you know, that's the first tick there, right? Like,
Broke
why?
that rule.
Right. And so I think for me, the thing that like I've had to really been intentional about being conscious of is remembering that Haley and I are a family. Like as a married couple, we're not just a married couple, we are a family. And so one of the questions that bugs me the most when people ask it of me or other married couples is just like, well, when do you plan to start a family? When what they really mean is, when do you plan to have kids? It's like,
And even that question.
right. It's like, that's a whole nother issue for a whole nother night. Like just that kind of invasive conversation. But still, it's like implying that somehow two adults who love each other and who want to build something together and are committed to each other, like that in and of itself is not family in many people's eyes. And that's really frustrating. So I think I answered your question in a really roundabout way, um, in terms of like how is this affected like the family that I've made. But I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so I think the struggle for me is that because there was that what I understood was family, and what's odd is that again we say this is what society has said, this is the standard and this is the traditional and this is what you're supposed to aspire to, and then that's not the thing that I see or grow up in. So for me it just always felt like I wasn't doing it right,
Mm,
being my mom being a single mother and us growing up with just her and I was it felt, and it wasn't just me, people
right,
would make fun of me, and people would, and you get asked those questions, and maybe, and I don't know what that's like now for kids, but I know when I was growing up, it was just other people did have a mom and a dad and I didn't.
right,
And because my dad wasn't in the house. And then coupled with the fact that I look like how I look, and then when I introduce people to my dad, who is a, 6'7" tall black man, they're kind of like, I'm sorry, what? And so there's this space of being, and I hate this term, but it's the term that we have, this space of being a stepchild, and having to make that distinction, like, oh, he's my stepdad, even though the reality is, no, he's the only dad I know.
Right.
And just belonging and at the same time not belonging. And
Mm.
that's a really weird space to be in. And so in having that combination of families and just all that. So that always felt like I still wasn't doing it right. There was something wrong. And it really did have an impact on, for the longest time. I didn't want a family. I wanted to be single. I didn't want to have children. I didn't want to get married. I didn't want any of that. And I kind of, I won't say fell into it, but I made some decisions, and it happened and put me on a different path.
Right.
But then happened again. So at the point where I had my son, I didn't do it right. I wasn't married. I wasn't, there was still this idea that, and I kind of spoke on this a little bit when we were talking about marriage last week or whenever that was, that there's this idea when you take this concept of the nuclear family, it it ingrains this idea that there's a way, and that you have to make things look this way, and that there's a certain way to get these things to look this way, sort of like a paint by numbers for marriage and family, right?
Right. And it's so interesting, like, as I'm hearing you talk and I'm thinking about my story with family, and I'm thinking about the families of so many people that like I grew up with. Like, I have several friends who, like, one of their parents died when they were in elementary school. So just growing up in a single parent home and constantly being like, oh, where's your mom? And it's like, why are you asking me that question? And just like in so many other scenarios with step parents and stuff like that, like there was literally a guidance, like a group therapy group in my elementary school called the Banana Splits for all of the kids whose parents were getting divorced. Right. So it was like so much evidence that nobody's family was normal. So if no one's
Hmm.
family is normal, then what the hell is normal? And so it would just occur to me that, like, I know this is not why they named it the nuclear family,
Hmm.
but like the concept of the nuclear family is nuclear in the fact that it's just an emotional shame bomb. Like it just drops on
It's
us and
ready to explode.
right, like, and it just creates all this shame and guilt and like I'm not good enough or there's something wrong with me, something wrong with my family, and that is just awful.
And it really, it really does, because I think even in the realm of, I remember my cousin, because I used to always tell people that, no, you don't have to have kids, and you don't have to do, and my cousin's like, you just don't want anybody else to to have children or whatever. I says, it's not that.
Right.
I don't want people to enter into something or to want something because they've been told they should want it, because they've been
Mhm.
told, because being in this space, where we're married, where I have children, you recognize that there's also a whole lot surrounding those, circumstances that we're just not prepared for, you
Right.
know? And so you don't want people to walk into this image of family like this is this thing you're supposed to do,
Right.
when family, it shouldn't be, that. It just shouldn't be that. So kind of on that note, you know, what is the goal then of, we talked about this a little bit, like what do we feel is the goal that this, nuclear family is supposed to provide? Why is that a standard?
Yeah, and I think like this is just basic assumptions based off of like what I know about people and like the limited research that I've done, like beyond the Google search before this conversation, on like the concept of family and whatnot. It's just like I think the idea of the nuclear family is supposed to provide security, right? So like this is my support system. This is the system that's going to keep a roof over my head. It's going to make sure that I'm fed. It's going to make sure that, I can live my life abundantly, and like outside of just surviving, I can pursue hobbies or whatever, because I have this safety net, like a roof over my head, a group of people who is committed to loving me. Right. So I think on one level, it's supposed to provide security. And then on another level, some kind of like companionship and community.
Yeah.
Right. So it's just kind of like, me growing up with two siblings, like I automatically had two friends. Like I would say coming out of the womb, but one of them was with me in the womb. Right. So like from the moment I was stitched together.
You had a womb mate.
Yes, I had a womb mate.
You're welcome, Grayson.
You would appreciate that one.
Yeah, and I think for me, when I hear terms like, and we hear it thrown around a lot, that, oh, society's suffering because of the breakdown of the family. Well, which one? Because I think when we talk about that breakdown of the family, again, it's what you're saying about needing to have this system of support where there's consistent guidance, where there's this security and this kind of thing. But I think, again, as a result of people entering into, these kind of social marriage as a social contract, kids as a social contract,
Okay.
what then happens is you do have a breakdown because you've done something out of the wrong kind of motivation or misinformation or misguided. And so we do have this breakdown because, like you said, we can have a traditional family, this two-parent household with the two kids and the dog, and yet have two parents who are toxic, have two parents who, while they might provide financial security, provide no kind of, love and emotional support for their children, are toxic to each other. And then you create children then who either perpetuate those same patterns or want to have nothing to do with these structures.
They could completely go the other direction.
And yeah, and going back to just making us feel like we're wrong for not wanting that thing, or for not having that thing in the way that it's supposed to look on the Christmas card.
Right. And I think like part of that comes back to, greatest commandment theology, right? Where it's like, so I feel like people who are in that cognitive dissonance, because I was in that for a little while, right? In terms of like, do I want the family thing? And by family thing, I was thinking, husband and kids, because this was pre coming out to myself, Kali. So I was like, do I want all those things? I think I want all those things, but I kind of like being a strong, independent woman, right? It's like, and I am really good at sustaining myself and taking care of myself. Is it selfish then to want to enjoy being a strong, independent woman? And for a season of my life, I think the answer was no. I was taking care of myself better than I had been in years. And that led me to a place where I was able to be a better partner for my wife,
Right.
who I met down the road, because like I was good, I was taken care of, I was healthy emotionally, spiritually, etc. So I think that kind of plays a role into it too. It's like that cognitive dissonance of like, well, I'm doing what I know my spirit is telling me that I need to do to take care of myself, but this self-care does not match the expectations that society has put on me. And that is just a breeding ground for shame. Hence nuclear emotion bomb.
I really like that reference. I really like that concept of, I think they were probably thinking nucleus, the center.
Oh, absolutely.
But I think it's definitely, it has become, like exactly what you're saying, where it's just waiting to explosion. Because when you're trying to create this picture for a fake situation, it's just not realistic. And
And
so,
that's not to say that like if people have genuinely gone into that and found love and support and community, that's bad. Like good on them. Like if that's what they need for their support network, like I don't want to like, just mess all over that.
I think it's really important that you said that too, because I think for folks who do have, who happen to have that more traditional family, and they're happy and they're thriving, I think that it is those families that can serve as a model. So like they're real families, not this made up kind of thing that society says we need to do. Like,
Right.
no, we're just an actual family, and here's where we've found success. And here's because I bet you if we talked to families who are healthy and, and all of those things, that we would find a lot of, as you said, greatest commandment theology in their interactions amongst each other. And I think that at the same time too, it's important to acknowledge that you can have success in one arrangement, and it doesn't mean that everybody else is going to be able to replicate that.
Right. Like just because this treatment plan works for you doesn't mean it's going to work for the next person. Like it's
Right.
not like a unilaterally prescriptive thing.
So kind of like to wrap up here, we have a few minutes left. How do you think, or do you think that, your family, we both talked about we don't have these, traditional families. How does your family fulfill that goal of security and support and, all of those things?
Yeah. Well, I mean, well, first of all, my wife is just, she's wonderful and amazing and loves me in all of the best ways. And when I say best, I mean healthy in terms of like sometimes it's the tough love and when it's just like holding me accountable to things that I need to do in order to be a better human. And other times it's comfort when I'm frustrated. But of course, there's also the more like brass tacks financial support and all that good stuff. Like we support each other in every way possible. And I think that ultimately that's what a family's supposed to do. But outside of that, in the realm of like what a chosen family looks like, um, I've got a couple of friends who are just like my number ones. Like I do Thanksgiving with them, like straight up.
Mhm.
And so just having them in my life and them being kind of like the siblings that just, I might tear up here a second just because think about how much these people mean to me. Just for more than a decade now have been like constantly in my corner, have literally given me a roof over my head when I've needed it, and just constantly providing emotional support and all kinds of other support. Um, like I think that that is something that is so crucial in a family. And so if that comes from your bio family, awesome. Um, and if it doesn't come from your bio family, I think you shouldn't be shamed to getting it from shame for getting it from somewhere else. I mean, we were talking a little bit earlier about even just the life of Jesus. Jesus' family was super atypical. I mean, he had two dads and a mom, right?
Mhm.
But then also when he grew into adulthood and started his public ministry, his hometown shunned him. Like he wasn't welcome home because they thought he was so heretical in his teaching. And so he created this, like I use the word family to describe the disciples around him. Like
Mhm.
they were the people that he went to for everything, particularly like Andrew and James and the beloved disciple, like just his inner circle of friends. Like those were like his brothers to him. And so he even said, like concerning family, like, you know, oh goodness, I'm going to misquote this Bible verse. But it's something about like, I did not come to bring peace, but a sword,
Oh, yeah, uh-huh.
right? In terms of like talking about family relationships with
Yes.
biological family. And so, like, I think if Jesus' family was not the nuclear family, I think we absolutely have permission to create a family system that doesn't look like the nuclear family and be fulfilled in that and like not feel ashamed of it.
Right. And I would agree with you 100%. I think one of the things that comes to mind for me when we talk about wanting to maintain this specific model of family, I think, and Myron Randall mentioned this yesterday during our virtual recording. If you're not on Patreon member of Holy Smokes, you need to do that because there's some goodies that happen. And he talked about scarcity mindset. And he wasn't talking about this in regards to family, but I think that scarcity, um, and just thinking that this is the only way to do it. And if we allow other things to be a standard and a model, that we're going to lose something somehow.
See
And
also see also the notes from those Supreme Court justices wanting to overturn the marriage equality. Yeah,
yeah, it's like you feel like you look at it as a loss versus a gain, and that's just an interesting thing for me. But the other thing that comes to mind is increasing, like, so why do we struggle with this thought of our expansive ability to love?
Mm.
I saw a post from our lady who does not like to be called first, Pamela Merritt, where she was talking about her niece and this love and loving her as like that's her child, like
Mhm.
it's her niece, but her child. And I have that. My niece, I have my daughters, of course, or whatever, but my niece, oh my gosh, the love for that little girl,
Mhm.
and the same is true. Like I have little cousins who it's just you, you even within your own family, like who gets to determine who's immediate? Who gets to determine,
Mm.
who's that kind of these are the most important. These are the ones who get to be in the room, so to speak. I think we have to let go and be okay of letting go of tying ourselves to this standard, because the reality is if we can fulfill the goal of security and commitment and support and all of that stuff, there hasn't been a breakdown of the family as it pertains to society. There's been a failure to allow the expansion and accepting of what that looks like and creating space for us to do what we're already doing, which is love abundantly.
Mhm.
And
It's
so
to parody. This one isn't quite as good as the pun that you did earlier, so Grayson might just roll his eyes. But it's a failure to love, right? Not a failure to launch, but a failure to love in
mm,
terms of like society not creating space for the diverse kinds of families uh, that we have. And I think that that is frankly just a shame.
right. So, all right. We only went a couple minutes over. I think we're okay though. We're over here breaking all the rules again.
Oh, you know.
Thank you all for joining us tonight. If you enjoyed what we had to say here, please share the stream with somebody that you think might enjoy it. If they don't have Facebook, you can share the YouTube link. Follow us on YouTube at the Faith Community, and join us Saturday for our Bible and Beyond Live
Yeah.
at 4 o'clock here on Facebook and YouTube. And we will be continuing the conversation of breaking all the rules. The book, the author is our wonderful pastor Christian A. Smith. And if you do not have your book, you can go to www.christianasmith.com and order your copy. So thank you for being with us tonight. Thank you everybody who tuned in. Melanie, Jasmine, we have a YouTube Redeemed 32 on YouTube, and of course
Oh,
Mama
fun.
Tony.
And real quick, if you catch this on the flip side or you catch just the recording later, we want to hear your thoughts too. What does family look like to you? What does it mean to you? And where do you see greatest commandment theology in the family that you have created, regardless if it is nuclear or not?
Yes. Thank you, everyone.